Hello, and welcome to the latest installment of Travel Talk. Joining us today, we have Dawn Page, who is the Director for UK and Northern Europe for the Hong Kong Tourism Board. And she's going to be talking to us about the recent opening of the Hong Kong Palace Museum, which is really exciting, and also the destination's rise as an arts and culture powerhouse. Hello, Dawn, how are you?
Hi, Charlotte, lovely to see you.
You too, Dawn. Thank you so much for joining us. Can't wait to find out more.
My pleasure.
So, Dawn, first up, can you tell me a bit about the different types of art that visitors can experience when they visit Hong Kong, and whether there are any particular types of art the destination is really renowned for or does best?
Yeah, thanks. Actually, that's a really good question, because I think one of the things we at the Hong Kong Tourism Board really want to get across to the trade is basically there are lots and lots of different facets to Hong Kong, and people know us for the skyline behind me, the fantastic Chinese cuisine. But what a lot of people don't know is actually in the last few years, we've really become sort of quite, well, as you said, a powerhouse, a really important player in the arts world. So it's like another, I guess, reason to sell as well, and a nice selling point for the trade to actually be able to tell their customers something they don't really expect. And the great thing about Hong Kong, I mean, we're not talking about, one or two museums, for example. There's art everywhere in Hong Kong. And you were talking about the new museum. Well, that's part of the new West Kowloon Cultural District. And this, I guess, development has actually been coming together probably for about the last 10-12 years. I've been here for 12 years and the people have been talking about it ever since then, but it's been really exciting, because just in this particular region in Kowloon, or area in Kowloon, there's actually 4 world-class museums, there's public spaces, there's parks, and one of the highlights last year was M+, which is the Museum of Visual Arts. And just in M+ alone, there's actually 33 galleries and collections from all around the world, which is absolutely amazing. But it's not just sort of West Kowloon, it's not just one museum or one district. The great thing about Hong Kong is that, well, as I said, there's art almost everywhere you look. So, for example, we also have these, I guess, what we call art hubs. They're buildings that from the outside might look like an office block, but actually once you get inside, you'll find there are offices, but there'll be restaurants, there'll be galleries, and possibly a really nice rooftop bar on top as well. So it's really sort of worth actually taking time and actually looking to see what there is under, hidden sometimes in plain sight in Hong Kong. To give you an idea, we've got Tai Kwun, and that used to be the old police station. But it was converted a few years ago, and for British visitors it's quite nice because it was the old police station. They've actually, in an area, there's a street behind it called the Old Bailey, so very much sort of similar to London, and that has, as I said, restaurants. It's got amazing gallery space, and we've also got H Queens, which is Hong Kong's first vertical art gallery. That's a building, it's 24 stories, but inside there are actually 8 art galleries, and so plus a really cool rooftop bar and restaurant. So art is everywhere in Hong Kong. It's well worth looking out for. But in all these art hubs, I guess the nice thing about it is you don't just see work from established artists. It's a great way for young up-and-coming Hong Kong designers to showcase their work. So there's another building, which is PMQ. It used to be the old police marriage quarters, and Hong Kong is getting very good at repurposing historic buildings.
Really?
But in PMQ, that has been a mecca for young designers and artists. And it's wonderful because you can wander around and actually pick up, little pieces that nobody else has got, and for very affordable prices, which is amazing. And I suppose the other thing I should touch on is, if you're into street art, Hong Kong really is a great place to be. Since 2014, we've actually had a festival called Hong Kong, or HK Walls. It carried on every year until the pandemic, and we're hoping very much it will come back again next year. But what they do there is amazing, because they actually isolate an area, a particular area, and then invite street artists from all over the world to come and use the city or use that particular area as the canvas. It's amazing, and you can just sort of walk round a corner and suddenly find this enormous mural, the fact that sort of a polar bear has been painted on the side of a building, and that's all thanks to HK Walls. So it's a really, really fun thing to do, and you know what we suggest, there are walking tours to actually find these hidden pieces of art.
Wonderful. I mean, it sounds like you've got amazing diversity in types of format, but also the types of artists you're representing. And I really love the way that art is incorporated into everyday life. That's so wonderful. And I think such a great USP. So let's talk a bit more about your latest edition, which is obviously the Hong Kong Palace Museum. Can you tell me a little bit more about it, and also why art lovers should be so excited to visit?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is really exciting. It's very new. It opened on the 2nd of July. And it's incredible looking at the pictures. And of course, I haven't had a chance to visit myself yet, but you know, there's actually almost 1,000 pieces of artwork which have been loaned from the Palace Museum in Beijing. And to actually sort of just say, you know, just emphasize what a big deal that is, it's actually the largest loan of artifacts that the Beijing Palace Museum has ever allowed to be taken out of mainland China. It's incredible. There's I can't begin to actually explain how many things there are. As I said, it's over 1,000 there. But not only that, it's not only the exhibits from mainland China, there's also over 100 exhibits from local galleries and local museums in Hong Kong, as well as pieces from the Louvre in Paris. So it's very much going to be an international museum, as well as a museum focusing on Chinese art and history. So the Louvre is the first of the international collections, and there are plans to actually bring more in from other galleries throughout the world over the next few years. And that is also in the West Kowloon district. So I said it's really, really worth going because there is so much to see in West Kowloon.
Brilliant. Thank you, Dawn. And obviously you've talked a little bit about other sort of galleries, etc., such as M+ and PMQ. Is there anything else that you want to mention, or, you know, any sort of upcoming exhibitions that you, or, you know, showcases that you'd like to talk about that people can sort of go and visit quite soon?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, I've talked about the new museums, M+ and the Palace Museum, but I also think something that, you know, you should never underestimate. Maybe the first is also worth seeing, the first ever museum in Hong Kong, and that's the Hong Kong Museum of Art, and that actually first opened in 1962, so 60 years ago. It was refurbished in 2019 and has recently reopened, but that's incredible for several things. One, again, if you look at the sheer scale of pieces there are on display, there's over 17,000 artworks there. It's got a permanent collection of modern Chinese, Hong Kong art. There's calligraphy, antiques. But one of the best things about it is actually on the in the Tsim Sha Tsui promenade. So it's where you get these iconic views of Hong Kong Harbour. A little bit about, like, of course, you can see behind me. So it's worth going in there, having a stroll, and then just taking in the view afterwards. It's absolutely breathtaking. And I think, you know, you also sort of asked about up and coming events. Well, as I said, Hong Kong in some ways is almost like an art gallery itself. But there are lots of events that happen every year. I mean, for example, the Affordable Art Fair happens every August, and just like the event in London here in the UK, it has everything, pieces from like £100 upwards. So again, you don't have to be a millionaire to actually collect art. For people that are into NFTs, non-fungible tokens, which I must admit I don't actually understand, but
Who does?
Who does? Yes, I mean, a lot of people pretend to, but I think most people don't. But we've got the Digital Art Fair in October, and then every year we have Art Basel. That's been very, very successful. Also Art Central, which normally happens in the spring. So I would suggest that people take a look at our website and you can see what the up and coming events are, but there's a lot going on.
Brilliant. And you talked a bit beforehand about sort of street art, etc. So are there any sort of hotspots or districts that travellers should make a beeline for or look out for?
Yeah, I mean, very, very much so. For the one place that was one of the first that Hong Kong HK Walls actually featured as part of their sort of street art festival is a place called Wong Chuk Hang. And that, if you can imagine Hong Kong Island sort of being shaped like this, Wong Chuk Hang is actually down in the south of Hong Kong Island, and there's some amazing pieces of street art there. if you don't want to go quite that far, and to be honest, it's not far. Transport in Hong Kong, public transport's amazing, so you can actually get there in about sort of 15-20 minutes from Central. But also on Hong Kong Island, there's an area called Sai Ying Pun, which is just sort of west of Central, so the main business district. And again, if you take a wander around sort of the side streets, it's all very sort of steep, but you go around a corner and suddenly like you find a mural of Frank Sinatra or something totally unexpected. So it really is worth actually sort of doing that. And I think the other thing which surprises a lot of people, and again maybe is a selling point for the trade, people know the skyline, but they don't realise that Hong Kong is actually made up of over 260 islands. And one of these in particular, Peng Chau, it's about an hour's ferry ride from Central. So again, a nice little experience to do that. But it was an old industrial village. And what's happened is over the years, again, it's become a bit of a mecca for artists and designers. So that's worth taking, going over for the day and actually exploring maybe the greener, quieter side of Hong Kong. Because one thing that I think is really special there's actually a building. It's an old leather factory. It was dated from the 1930s. But what's happened is the lady that owns it now has set up what she calls her secret garden. So she's made it into an art gallery, but she puts different exhibitions on every month. So what you see this month is going to be totally different from next month. I don't know how she does it. I don't know how she finds all these different things to exhibit, but it's a really, really nice thing to do. Otherwise, again, on Kowloon's side, a little bit different from M+ and the brand new museums, is that if you take a wander around an area called Sham Shui Po, it used to be, again, quite an industrial area, but because it was, I guess, property was cheaper, studios were cheaper than on the other side of the harbour on Hong Kong Island. A lot of designers and artisans and craftsmen actually sort of set up their studios there. So that's sort of like the young up and coming designers. But what you can also find, there are traditional handcrafts. So, for example, you can find handcrafted Chinese embroidered slippers, but sometimes with a little bit of a modern touch, or handcrafted mahjong tiles. So it's a real juxtaposition of the old and new, and definitely worth a wander, again, to sort of see a different side of Hong Kong.
Fabulous. Thank you for the top tip, Dawn. So obviously you've given us loads of USPs when agents are selling. Are there any other things, any tips that they should focus on, whether that's selling it as an arts destination or just in general?
Oh, well, it's sometimes when that question is so broad, it's actually quite difficult to answer. But maybe if I stick to I guess the arts theme, because I think, seeing art in Hong Kong, as I said, it's everywhere. So it's something that I think is very good for people to do at their own pace. But I think as far as agents, as far as the trade's concerned, it's actually another hook, another reason to go, and something that people may not expect. On our own website, discoverhongkong.com, we have a whole series of self-guided tours which people can sort of take their time and go and explore the different areas. But the nice thing about it as well for agents is we've got a lot of art-inspired hotels. So, for example, the Rosewood, which opened, I think, about 4 years ago, that has amazing artwork. So as you go into the entrance, you actually, there's a statue by Henry Moore. They've got paintings by Damien Hirst. So some really, really very well-known artists, even for people that perhaps have only got a passing acquaintance with art. You don't have to be an expert. The other thing is everybody knows the iconic Peninsula Hotel, one of the grand old ladies of Hong Kong. But what you might not be familiar with is there's actually a program called the Peninsula Academy, where visitors can actually go and they can learn all sorts of different Hong Kong crafts. For example, I think lantern making, Hong Kong's fashion scene, they can learn about that, or even the comic art scene in Hong Kong. So that is actually something that I think is very useful for agents to know, that they can book people into these hotels if art is one of their interests. Apart from that, there's also another one in West Kowloon. It's the Tung Lau Art Hotel. And again, a hotel with art, with galleries. It's just incredible that, as I said, that Hong Kong has somehow managed to combine daily life, hospitality with the broader art scene. The other thing is, you might expect, it's not just the hotels. We've also got art-themed restaurants. We have Michelin star
Art-themed everything.
Yeah, art with everything. Seriously, there's Duddles, which is a modern Cantonese restaurant that serves Cantonese food. Again, amazing art canvases around there. They do talks, they do screenings, they do exhibitions there. We've also got another one which does what it says on the tin. It's FAM, food, art and music is what it stands for. So you know, what's not to like there? And even there you have light art, art installations, and again canvases, talks, pieces from international and local artists. So you know, really there's so much, and it's actually quite exciting for us at the Hong Kong Tourism Board, because it is quite an untapped vein. You know, it's something that maybe we've only discovered ourselves over the last few years, and it's a really, really exciting topic to talk about.
Brilliant. And just lastly, Dawn, how are you going to be working with the UK trade to promote Hong Kong as an arts hub, in terms of, have you got any competitions, any FAMs, any training coming up that they can take advantage of?
Yeah, we're actually working on a whole program, actually, Charlotte. There will be FAM trips, and you know, art is always going to be an integral part of that. We have our Hong Kong specialist program is actually being relaunched. I don't have a date yet on that, but we're really hoping to have an arts module on that to give people a little bit of a steer on what to sell. Also, we're very active. My trade manager Adela actually goes out on training sessions. We're more than happy to actually go and visit people. We take part in partner events as well to reach the broader trade. So and of course, you, as you said yourself, you've just written a piece on the Palace Museum.
Please read it, everyone.
Yeah, so we're obviously working very close with you and the guys at Selling Travel.
Fabulous. That's great. Thank you so much, Dawn. That was so much there, you know, for agents to go on to sell. So many great tips and so many absolutely amazing sounding experiences related to art and culture that they can send their clients on. So thank you so much for your time today, and thank you to everyone for watching. Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you. You're welcome. Love to speak to you.
You too.